And we're on.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Adult Education at St. Mark's Episcopal Church on the day of the time change. And everybody who is here in person is going to have an extra shiny halo in heaven. So it's good you guys are here, and I'm grateful, and I'm grateful to everybody out there online. And I thought we would start today. I gotta see if I can do this. Okay. I thought because this is Women's History Month, we should maybe for our meditation um, do a woman poet. And I found Mary Elizabeth Coleridge, who wrote about Nicodemus, which is our reading today in church. And she was actually the great grandniece of Samuel Taylor Coleridge of Rime of the Ancient Mariner fame. And she was a very well-known writer and novelist at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th. And this is her poem about Nicodemus. So let us put ourselves in the presence of God and listen to her words and to the words of the Holy Spirit. With slow and stealthy steps he trod the darkening and deserted streets, and no one in the market greets the man upon his way to God. By night he left the splendid home that sheltered many a sleeping guest. One and another lay at rest. The master of the house would roam. Was there a single soul that knew? No, for he feared the eye of scorn, the crooked laugh of anger born. Only the bats about him flew. The broidered, borders of his gown he covered over, that none might see. Shall good come out of Galilee? This were the mock of all the town. But in the city named for peace, no peace his weary heart had known, and ever in the crown alone, he waged a war that would not cease. He came by night, and yet he came, and he that was himself the way shall own him on the judgment day, and to the world confess his name. May you confess our names as well, dear Lord. Give us courage, not just to walk at night, but also to come by day. Amen. Amen. This is actually, this this painting up here is by a guy named Fritz von Ude. I hope I'm saying that right. He was a 19th century painter. I think this was actually just in the early 20th century, but this is Nicodemus and Jesus. And I love it because I thought you guys might get a kick out of it because I don't know whether you can tell here, but Nicodemus is wearing a university gown like at Oxford. Mm-hmm. And Jesus is there, it looks just like a student. And I thought, well, as a former academic, I thought, oh yeah, this is really good. And quite a wonderful painting. So I wanted to share that with you. And that's also gives you some insight. I was a 19th century literary scholar. Oh my goodness. The Victorian age is all over. So you'll see a lot of that here. But anyway, as we move ahead, today's reading at Mass at church is born again, being born again, as Jesus says to Nicodemus in chapter 3, verses where I'm going to focus us today, partly as a preparation for what Lindsay's going to bring us into the farewell discourse and the foot washing next week. So I said, okay, we're going to look at Lazarus, who is alive again. So that's where we're focusing. I'll talk a little bit at the first. You guys jump in at any time if you have a question, no worries. So I thought, okay, I've got to look at Nicodemus because he's the service, and I've got also to look at Lazarus because that's what I made this decision about. So this is what I came up with, and if anything occurs to you as I present what I thought about, please share. The one is about birth, and it's not literal. It's more metaphorical. It's a birth of water and the spirit. And of course, Nicodemus needs to have this explained to him. And then there's water, and the Spirit comes like a wind that you don't know where it comes from and where it's going. So this is very puzzling to Nicodemus. You go to chapter 11, and there you're dealing with death. And it is not metaphorical. There is very practical worry about stink and what happens when somebody dies, and the pain of loss. And it is all too real for those sisters and for Jesus himself. So we're moving in that way. Now, if you look at chapter 3, and you've got, if Jesus is not the protagonist, like if we think about Nicodemus, we are in the night, and the man seeks. Okay, he is coming to find. He's not real brave about it, but he is interested and wants to know more. With Lazarus in the daylight, you've got a woman who summons. Martha says, "Go, tell our Lord that the one he loves is dead." The stress with Nicodemus is, we know you are a teacher who has been sent from God. It's all about knowing, okay? Versus Martha, who after she gives him a talking to says, "I believe you are the Messiah." And in some ways, and Sandra Schneider wrote, Written That You May Believe, she talks about the distinction between knowing and believing. Theologians know, we know intellectually, okay? But in spirituality, we believe. And this is an interesting adult education because it kind of does both. It kind of merges learning stuff with talking about and thinking about.
Well, what I see the difference between the two is Nicodemus came, the two groups that they belong to. Nicodemus's group would not approve of him at all. That's why he came at night.
Yeah.
And Martha and Mary lived within a group of followers of Jesus. So one could be very overt, the other one had to be covert.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think it's kind of thinking about, did he have a bigger obstacle to deal with than she did?
I think he did. And he did this even though he was fearful.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. It's a hope. And there's a lot of followers of God that had to do it.
A lot. And certainly
and they still
they're still doing it
to this day.
Yeah. His question, as you guys know, how can anyone be born again after having grown old, versus how can anyone be alive again after having died? They're big questions. Jesus in that chapter 3, he's very calm, he seems like, and he's very authoritative. And if you go through, it says, Jesus answered, Jesus answered, Jesus answered all the time. Yeah. And there's so much happening in chapter 11, but I think one of the things we might think about, it talks about how greatly disturbed he is when he sees the pain and the grief around him. And it says he is greatly disturbed. And that's repeated twice, first with Martha and then with Mary, and that he's troubled in spirit. And I remember when I went into seminary, yes, this is all ties into Jesus weeping, and that's everything. And then the professor, Barbara Reed, she said, if you look at the actual Greek, and I can't read Greek, but if you look at the actual Greek, the connotation of the word that is used is not just being worried or something like that. It's rage. It's rage. And he's enraged by death. And that is a very human feeling. And I think for us, something to take comfort in. When I was a hospice chaplain, I would tell people about this because so many times people were grieving, but they felt like it was wrong to feel angry. And that rage is at death. That's one of the really great.
Isn't that what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said? First of all, it's denial, and then it's anger.
Yeah.
Reactions to that.
Yeah.
What I see in it, clearly as you start talking about it. I had never thought about it before, because it doesn't make sense. He knows he's gonna heal him, so why is he so upset, you know?
Yeah.
right.
And I think that what we see is Jesus living in the minute.
In the
He's
present.
living at that moment. He's able to feel, and he's met death before. We're
Mhm.
assuming that his father has died, and
Mhm.
you know, people don't live very long.
Right,
So
right.
he says he's been through death a lot of times. He's even healed a child from death, you know, so
Mhm.
you know, he's quite capable of what he can do, but he can
Mm.
still be very upset by it.
Yeah.
So I think that it's interesting that death would have a power over him. You know, he would react to it when he has power over death.
Yeah.
And at first he seems almost, well, complacent, or like he's the stage
Yeah,
manager and
yeah,
he's saying,
yeah.
okay, I don't have to
Yeah,
come yet. I don't
well,
have to come yet because I know things, I've got things under control.
Yeah.
And then when he actually gets on the scene, then we've
Yeah.
got these elements of feeling out of control or angry or whatever.
Yeah. It's
And
a,
it shows you that feelings aren't bad.
right,
Hmm.
right.
I've learned that, you know,
Yeah.
but feelings are just feelings. They don't mean anything else, but
Mhm. But they
and
are
so,
true.
but it's
Yeah,
our
yeah.
reaction to them is,
Yeah, yeah.
and
And so
it didn't stop him.
it didn't. Finally here, I would just point out, Jesus is talking about power coming from above, light and love in chapter 3. And that's really clearly articulated in chapter 3. And then I thought, well, where are we in chapter 11? And I thought, all I could see was that cave, you know, with the man coming out. And I thought, well, is that from below? I don't know, but what love is able to achieve there is to unbind and to set free. So yeah, that's where I'm heading with that. Now, these are the issues raised by the greatest sign. There were 7 signs in the book of John, and this is the greatest. This is the really powerful one. And these are some of the questions. Who was, and I would say, who is Lazarus? You brought up this issue. What was Jesus thinking by saying, oh, wait, that's no problem. I've got 2 days, I'll be there. You know, that's like, I don't know what he was thinking.
He's gotta smell bad.
Exactly.
Says that, yeah.
Yes, it does. What was Martha doing in this story? She's my favorite character in this one. And in coming attractions, I'm not sure we're going to get to this today, but what is the deal with Mary's hair? I'm trying to figure out this in all the Gospels, but drawing with hair. So if you guys have any theories on that, let me know.
Okay.
But first, I wanted to give you guys a chance to see the story itself and think about whom do you identify with. And so we're going to watch a short clip. And this is anytime we're talking about film, we're talking about a particular interpretation, a particular angle. But let's see how this goes, and let's see, Laura, if this works. Is it gonna work? I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I was thinking it would likely bring up the other window, and you might have to share the other window,
Okay.
but it doesn't seem to
So
be
it
bringing up anything. So
says new share. Okay, I think this will work.
remember
Okay.
to share sound too if there is sound.
Oh, do I have to?
Yeah, oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, just say share sound.
Where does it say that?
When you share, there's a when you're sharing the screen, actually stop sharing and then start sharing again. And when you share screen, there's a click box down to the lower left that says share screen or share sound.
Okay.
I think it's lower left. Used to be lower left.
I got it. Okay, here I am. Rat technology. I think I'm gonna have to go all the way back and share the PowerPoint. Reshare the PowerPoint.
You shouldn't have to. You just Alt Tab, and that should give you the option of
Okay,
clicking onto it without basically clicking out of it. Or if you hit escape, then your Zoom won't be your entire window and you'll be able to see it behind.
I see share here, Mark. So I don't seem to be. I knew this
Well,
was
there's
gonna
share
be,
screen.
thank you. Okay, and then we want to share this,
I believe so.
and then we want to hit, now I'm gonna hit share, and then we need to see sharing sound.
It's already shared, so my guess is you're past that. It's a
Okay,
guess, though.
I'll push the button and we'll see what happens.
There we go. It works.
It was the magic button.
Wow,
If there is sound, I can't hear it.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, I can.
Now a man named
Yeah, we can
Oh, wait,
hear.
wait, we got it. We got it.
Oh, you
good.
did get it?
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
Oh, no, turn it back on.
yeah.
You muted the sound.
Now YouTube is trying to go away. How did I unmute?
Just click there. There you go. Perfect. And then not that one, the one, yeah, there. Oh, nope, back. There, yay. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. That's the next one.
Yeah, it's-
I'm sending you to the wrong button.
Okay, let's stop share. We're gonna do again. All of those of you at home, go get some food, get hot chocolate, get a glass of wine. And this, this is life in the,
It's really
In the fast
4:30
lane.
in the morning, you know?
yeah. It's like- okay, share screen. Now, this is not the right one. That's the problem here. Let's share it and then I'll go,
Go back.
yeah. There we go. Okay, are you hearing anything?
now a man
No. Yes, I got it. Don't worry about it. You're fine.
I don't know why. Oh,
Ah,
I put my hands
he
down.
was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay ill, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus. Lord, the one you love is ill. When he heard this, Jesus said, this illness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister
but
and Lazarus.
There's that.
So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Let us go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back. Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. After he had said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. Jesus had been speaking of his death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes. You are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. Did you receive her? She said, he's asking. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house comforted her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see. Then he cried. Jesus. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by his time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, Jesus called out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. His hands and feet wrapped in strips of linen, and a cloth round his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did believed in him.
Get out of here now. Stop share. Okay, now I think, oh, still running.
Now a man named Lazarus was ill.
Kind of funny that it
He
was.
was from Bethany, the village of Mary.
First, we
her sister
couldn't get
Martha.
it. Dear Lazarus, we
This
do need to say
Brother
goodbye to you.
Lazarus now lay ill.
Pause.
There. Okay, now I think I need to share screen again. We go there and we should be good. There. Okay. So I'm sorry for the sound issues, but I can send you guys the link so you can watch it at home and really hear what's being said.
Well, he was saying, you know.
It's-
It follows
so
pretty
I was
close. I
kinda
noticed,
following
yeah.
it, Yeah.
It follows close.
Yeah.
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 Was there anyone you identified with? And it doesn't have to be in the film. Is there somebody you identify with in the story? I'm wondering.
I think I identify with the disciples who are saying, well, if we go back to where
I have a small problem, guys. I'm so sorry. Apparently YouTube did not like that, and it stopped our streaming. So I'm gonna need to start streaming again. My apologies. Oh no, it did. No, I'm wrong. Sorry, we're still on. I lie to you. My apologies.
You
Sorry.
know, this is why I specialized in the 19th century. Because paper and ink, you know. It's just- okay, you just let us know.
Well,
You got a
Okay.
handle on that.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
It's
Well, pretty
weird.
good.
It says stream is unavailable, but here we are. So
Yeah.
I'm confused. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Keep
Don't.
going. It's all good.
So you identified with the
I
disciples.
identify with the disciples, and it's
Right.
partly that this is such a familiar story, and rereading it, that was a part that I remembered anew or realized anew, that there was this back and forth where they were going to Jerusalem and then they were running away, and then they're out in a place of refuge, and then they hear about Lazarus having died or being sick and then dying, and that's, I don't know, that really jumps out for me.
Being female, I would jump from Mary to Martha to back to Mary and then to Martha. Cause it's pretty hard to get a hold of that faith that they had to figure it out.
Mm.
You know, it takes a life, it's taken me a lifetime of growth, spiritual growth to get to where I am now, and I have a lot more growing to do, so that's amazing, you know, these are young women,
Yeah.
so, it's wonderful faith.
I relate to Martha because she was mad at him.
Yeah.
That's not very holy of me, but it was kind of like, and I like that
if you're a
she
friend.
still believed, but she
Yeah.
still believed even when she was angry. Yeah, and you're right. And we'll talk, that's one of my points later on, is that if it's a good friend, if it's a healthy relationship, you can say these things.
We assume a lot, you know.
Mhm.
Well, I don't feel much identification with this story at all.
Oh, really?
It's but then I tend to be just irritated with the Book of John.
Why do you think so? That's really interesting.
It,
Why are you irritated with the Book of John?
the way it talks about the Jews and then the way it's been
Mhm.
used, of course, which I'm
Mm.
very
Yeah.
familiar with. But I've opened up just a plain little King James Bible, which is
Mhm.
perfectly familiar to me.
Mhm.
But I generally read with a study Bible that has
Mhm.
helpful notes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of the
right, yeah.
blessings that we have nowadays,
Mhm.
to have some commentary while we go
Right.
along.
Yeah. It was interesting when I was really young as a teenager and when I fell in love with Jesus, but that's what it was. Actually, it was the guy who played Robert Powell, who played Jesus in Jesus of Nazareth. I'm pretty sure that was what was behind that. But But I love the book of.
Sounds like it's time for me to.
You didn't even know that.
you
Yeah,
can
it's time for
confess
you to
whatever
go. This
need
is a
to.
good
Well,
idea.
Well, there's other interpretations and that's the
Right.
one you like.
Right, right. Well, it's what I liked then, and I really love the book of John. And as I've gotten
Good
older,
to see you.
See, I was seeing.
I like the synoptics better. So it's kind of ironic to be asked to do this, but I'm learning to appreciate it as I'm going through.
Mhm.
But there's a big agenda, it feels like, in the book of John.
Mhm.
And that is, so finding where is Christ and where does that, the living Christ in the living scripture, and where does that fit in with this text, which is both sacred and profane, if you will. It's kind of, it's a both and.
Interesting words you use. In one of my scripture studies, I learned that John most likely did not write this, but a Johannine group
Right.
wrote it.
Mhm.
And you know that there was definitely had a message and a purpose for this. There was a mission behind all of this.
Yeah.
And I tried to contextualize it and put myself in at the time because people thought differently than they had
Probably
different,
true.
they had different background. He was talking to those people with their background.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, 2,000 years later,
It's amazing it's still
Yeah.
alive,
I'm
for us.
supposed to extrapolate. I remember my mother had a book saying what Jesus said. It was just his quotes.
Mhm.
Oh, really? They just.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I have,
interesting.
she died a long time ago and there were thousands of books in her in her bookcase, so that one didn't make the cut.
Oh.
But I really wish that I'd like to get a hold of
Be
that because that
interesting.
would really help me.
Well, you can easily
because
get a
it's
red
Jesus'
letter
word
Bible. And
that we're more concerned about than the story, pardon me?
you can easily get a red letter Bible and go through and read it that way yourself.
Read, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, it's kind of a, it's a troubling and challenging story. And it's a story of great faith. It's a big thing. Uh-oh. It's not letting me move my screen, Laura.
So you're gonna want to go to, you alt tab onto your PowerPoint presentation and then hit the forward. Because right now you're in Zoom.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Alt tab and it's not doing anything.
Really? Hold down
Yeah.
the alt key and hit tab and nothing happens?
Alt tab, right?
Right. Mhm.
Alt tab.
Huh.
Let me try.
Oh, there you go.
You know what? I'm just doing a little I can't do it where I use. Okay, never mind. We're here. All right. Got
Woohoo!
it. Okay. My Master of Divinity is from Catholic Theological Union in Hyde Park. And for 56 years of my life, I was a Catholic. And then I finally, for another time,
I
felt it
join
was
you
time.
in that.
All right, all right. But I find that I still love the Catholic theologians, and I don't know whether you guys have read James Martin. He's editor of America Magazine.
I know his name.
Yeah, yeah. And I've enjoyed a lot of his books. And then I saw this just was published in August of 2023.
Come
So
to
it's-
life, it's called.
Yeah,
Come Forth,
Come Forth,
okay.
the promise of Jesus' greatest miracle. And I was going to read it all for today, but the time changed and other parts of my life after surviving COVID suddenly. So I'm right smack in the middle, but it's good. He's very readable. He's kind of chatty. He has, but he covers, it's a wonderful overview of all the different theological ideas and interpretations. And Lindsay, I know, loves Amy Jill Levine, and Amy Jill Levine is one of the people who says, oh, this is a great book. So, so it's really quite ecumenical in many of it, in its treatment of ideas. And
he's
so
a Jesuit too, huh?
he is. And that's my one negative thought as I was reading it is, boy, those Jesuits are elite and privileged. But still, it's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful book. It gives us both the intellectual background, but at the end of each chapter, it also has questions for you to think about. So it'd be a good one to do for a book group. But most of what you are coming to now is James Martin, compliments of James Martin. So I'm going to
Okay.
give credit where credit is due. So some of this you guys probably know, so jump in at any time or share something. Who was Lazarus? That first question. And some people believe he was a part of the Essenes, the people of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the thing they point to, which I kind of wondered at, but apparently, at least as presented in John, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus are all celibate. They're not married. So that's why they think, oh, he might have been part of this ascetic sect. And that's,
Well,
do you know
that's-
more about that?
No, but it makes sense that he had to be because all men were married. And
and that
and
way.
many
Hmm.
theologians think that Jesus was too, because you
Mhm.
just did not,
Yeah.
and you didn't live a life like that and
Mhm,
not
mhm.
be married.
Except for John the Baptist.
Well, he was
Mhm.
an ascetic.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one theory, and that's why they were around Jerusalem area. So that makes sense.
Maybe John just didn't live long enough. He did get his head lopped off, But
Or maybe they're
he was
widows,
born
widowers.
for Jesus, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know how old he was. He had
Yeah.
to be 30.
He had to be 30 at least, and that's
Yeah.
a good age in that day. Some people say we know this, John says this, he's a beloved one and a great friend. Philia, and that upper left picture, that's from, I've never watched this show, but it's live streaming and it's called The Chosen. And it was film, I guess they started the first season in 2017. But anyway, in that particular film version, that's Lazarus on the left and Jesus on the right. And it develops a lot of backstory, and it imagines them both as working to help build Sepphoris. I hope I'm saying that right. The big town that Herod was working on. And would it be Herod? I don't know. Don't ask me about that. But anyhow, good friends. There's another great clip from the film that shows Jesus laughing, just like laugh out loud, just joy. So it was good friends. And Martin talks quite a bit about the importance of friends for Jesus.
Mhm.
You need somebody you can talk to, or you can, and so he goes into that with great detail.
Well, that's interesting. The way he was depicted in that YouTube, he was an old man,
Yeah.
But if he was a friend of Jesus, you see a different interpretation, a
Right.
man who was the same age.
Right, yeah. It's really interesting.
Yeah, different ways of looking at
The
it.
other thing that's here, and I wasn't able to put this together yet for you guys, but they talk about all the novel adaptations of the story of Lazarus and who he is. And that's really fun. Even if you don't want to read the novels, it's fun to read how they thought about it and imagined it.
Oh,
So, this is a great, very dramatic story.
yeah.
This guy's
really
being
is.
hunted down. He's been almost stoned. He goes out and he goes out to Bethany and he waits, and then there's death and there's grief and
he knows what's coming, and none of
Yes.
it makes sense.
Yeah, and and at some point you'd say, does it make sense to him? Well, some people have said he is the beloved one, the beloved disciple.
Uh-huh.
And there's quite a lot that who is referred to 6 times in the Gospel of John.
Right.
And there are some
yeah.
other theories that the beloved disciple is Mary Magdalene, that the beloved disciple is simply a symbol, or that it's us, which I think is Lindsay's talked about that, and I think for our living scripture, maybe that's a way to think about it.
Mhm.
But the rationale that Lazarus is the beloved disciple is that, and he presents it all here, and Ben Witherington, I think, is the scholar who first posited, the theologian who first posited this idea. But unlike the synoptics, this is centered on Judea and Jerusalem.
Mhm.
And so he's really talking about the disciples there. he's clearly a privileged eyewitness, which I find an interesting way of talking about it. I guess if you're raised from the dead, you would be privileged. And in Judea, he's kind of the counterpart to Peter in Galilee. So the argument goes. And then there's quite a bit of talking about how close Bethany was to Jerusalem and how this would explain the relationships of the Pharisees. And I confess that's was the point where I was kind of like, okay, but you guys might read it and find it more convincing.
Well, part of understanding the times that we're reading about in the Bible is remembering that everybody was walking every place.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a
Soldiers
lot,
would
it
ride a
didn't
horse.
happen immediately.
Yeah.
They, and Mark, in one of my studies, we studied Mark, and I was told that things in Mark always happen right away.
Yes.
And so.
Immediately. And then. And then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that Martin he's pretty convinced by this. I was pretty skeptical, but there is one interesting part of this that ties in, and this is kind of the linchpin of the argument. The post-resurrection thing in chapter 21. You remember, I think Jesus is making fish and they come, and then he does the 3 questions to Peter: do you love me, feed my sheep, etc. But then if you go, if you look there, it's on page 36 at the bottom. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who had reclined next to Jesus at the supper and had said, Lord, who is it that's going to betray you? And when Jesus saw him, he said, when Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about him? And Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? Follow me. So the rumor spread in the community that this disciple would not die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he would not die, but, and then he goes ahead. So this is the disciple who is testifying to you. The argument goes that after the resurrection, I don't like to call it that, the revivification of Lazarus, when he was brought back from the dead, there was a lot of concern, we know, because some of the people in the city thought they didn't just want to get rid of Jesus. Now they needed to get rid of Lazarus because he had really been an important, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, but the other thing that apparently people were wondering about, and this makes sense, is he going to die again?
Oh, that's always my question.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it might make sense, well, that they would have this question. And when Peter asked this question, which has always seemed kind of nonsensical to me, why is he asking?
Yeah.
But that does make some sense. So.
And Jesus says, what is it?
It's none of your business.
And so, okay, Lord.
Yeah, it's funny.
We don't need to know.
So, and then there's Martha, my favorite. And there's 2 ways. You'll notice that I said the question is, what is Martha doing in John? And then what is Martha doing in John? And this was another revelation to me. First of all, Amy Jill Levine has said, when you look at the actual text, the word describing what Martha is doing is diakonia. Okay, and that's in the synoptics as well. Diakonia. I'm not sure I'm saying it right, but
I see.
yeah. But that, and she says that simply means ministry and serving.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean setting the table and standing over the fire with the food. And she said that could possibly be an imposition onto the story.
Our own imposition.
Right. And maybe the imposition of people,
We've done that a lot, haven't we?
Yeah. So, and I this is a still from the one we were just looking at, but you see, it is the character of Martha who is doing the nursing. Mary is there present, but Martha's doing the nursing. So what is she doing? She's doing major ministry. And this is what you mentioned before, Edna, but the honesty. She is the honest one. And as Martin puts it, it's the mark of healthy adult relationships. You can say, don't you care that I'm having to do all the work and she's just sitting here? Okay. And then he can say to her, well, okay. But then again, if you had been here my brother would not have died. And those words are in both Martha and Mary. They both say that to him.
Oh,
And
yeah, okay.
when in my early Catholicism, the holy card Catholicism, I call it, it was like, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. I think she was really angry. And I think that's
Yeah,
okay.
I hear
If
that.
you had come,
Yeah.
what were you doing? Where were you? If you'd been here, he wouldn't have died.
He got scolded.
Yeah, and he says, but I still think, So that honesty
So
is part of her.
go do your work, huh?
Right. Now, this made me somewhat indignant because, I really like Martha.
I'm wondering if he might have made a promise to them.
He probably, think of your best friend.
Because she so expected it.
Yeah, they're all,
So
yeah,
you slipped up this time, buddy.
not so great.
Yeah.
Okay, you may be the son of God, but really. Okay.
Yeah.
Papyrus 66 is I think, and if any of you know better, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I understand, is the longest manuscript we have of John. They believe it is dated to the year 200. And there are arguments that a later editor actually put Martha into the text. She wasn't there originally. And there's one page, and it's copied in here, I don't have it up here, where there seems to have been the word Maria about somebody talking to Jesus and questioning him. And somebody has crossed it out and it became Martha. So there is kind of a theory, does she belong in here at all? So I just throw that out to you to say, poor Martha, she can't catch a break. And if you, yet I think the Holy Card version of, her and Mary going and kneeling, in this version, you'll notice the interpretation was she fell at Jesus's feet and she was crying. And she said, so, and I think it's a both and again, but an interesting idea. Are you going to come now? Okay, there was what was Jesus thinking? We've kind of covered that. There's Holy Card, lovely Jesus, whom as child I certainly loved it and still do. Everybody bringing their sick, everybody coming to him and saying, please, Lord, would you heal? And we do that every day with the people we love. And then where was he? And the traditional explanations, and you mentioned this one. It's 4 days since he's been in the tomb. And traditionally, the idea in Judaism was that the spirit hovered around the body for 3 days and then left. So it's significant in terms of the resurrection of Jesus, that it was on the third day he rose, because the spirit would still be there. But if you wait until the 4th day, for sure, he's gone. Right. And to give you some not pleasant, but true context, in a warm environment, within the first 24 hours, and certainly by the end of the first day, the organs would be liquefying and decomposing.
Yeah,
by
faster than they would
third
here
day,
in
yes.
the wintertime.
And by the 3rd day, the body's bloating because of the gases being released. It's really, and that's where the smell
There's
comes
a
from.
lot of chemical action going on.
So if you think about it, this is a personal anecdote, but when my mom died in October and we were at the crematory and my husband and I and our oldest son went in with her, which some people thought was weird, but I thought if I would stay and wait for her to be put in the ground, I'm going to stay and see her.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did that. I got to talk without crying.
Yeah.
But one thing happened as they were wheeling her, they put her in a cardboard coffin because that will be destroyed with her. And she had the little cross that Father George brought to her in her hand. But as they were moving it, maneuvered into the furnace, it jostled and her head fell like this. And it was the way a thing gets jostled. It wasn't like
It was a way what?
it was like an object that gets jostled.
Oh.
The way it fell. And I thought, she's not there.
Oh.
She's not there.
Uh-huh.
And so when I look at this story, it's a huge miracle.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the other reason why wait 4 days? Well, I don't think this is a good argument, but maybe you guys can explain it better to me. But, well, it's better if he's dead than he's sick, because he will receive more grace or power if he's risen from the dead than if he was only sick. I don't understand that explanation at all.
Oh,
But that apparently is one other theory. And the other, and I think somebody was mentioning this earlier, but it's about Jesus being in control. Okay. He determines when is the right time for Lazarus to be
yeah, that's
risen.
right, yeah.
And it shows his control over death, which becomes really significant when he says, okay, my time has come now, I've got to go.
Mhm.
So those are the traditional arguments where that's concerned. This is the Oscar Romero prayer you guys might have seen. It's actually by Ken Untener, but as we think about what Jesus did and didn't do, the prayer says, we plant the seeds that will one day grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces effects far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it well. We may never see the end result, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are the workers, Martha, not the master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future, not our own. So though we know some things we can't know everything. And what good may come from evil and pain, that we have to wait for in trust and hope. We cannot know. The choir is singing today at, I don't know when they're singing it, probably the offertory, but the hymn they're singing talks about God, what God ordains is always good. And it was written in the context of a woman who was dying of cancer and her kids and her family. And I think it was a friend that wrote the hymn for her, and she did die. But in spite of that, the family says, what God ordains is always good. We can't know the end,
Oh, yeah.
but we can believe that
It's
good
a
will
great
come.
prayer for sacred ground,
Yes, it's a beautiful prayer.
because
Mhm.
all we can do is plant the seeds, all we can do is water.
Mhm.
We have no idea what's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. It's
And can I get it on Google?
yeah, I
Okay.
think so. If you just
All right.
do, and actually, I'll give you guys this. I made some copies. So this will have my writing in one of them.
Well, I could enter
This one's mine.
Hunter.
Here, it's all on there.
Oh,
And then you can copy it. And here's one
oh,
for
thank
you.
you.
And then
You
see, this is
didn't
why,
color picture of
yeah.
this.
This is what pays to
Your
come in
slide?
person, see? The special reward.
Okay. All right, we'll look at the slide here.
Yeah. So it's that idea that there's a greater good that we cannot know, but we can believe and hope, that takes us from the weeping Jesus, the Jesus who is enraged and hurting in spite of knowing, in spite of being in control. And that takes us to the resurrected Jesus, and the joy and the unexpectedness. And did I say resurrected Jesus? I mean reanimated Lazarus, but it does also lead to the resurrected Jesus. How are we doing on time? We're doing pretty good. So this is what lies ahead in the next few weeks. Okay, we've got Mary of Bethany, and I'm still wondering about the hair. So I'm going to do research this week, and if I find out something, I'll let you guys know.
You're still wondering about your hair?
No, her hair.
Oh.
This washing
Okay.
the hair. I actually wrote a poem about it sometime, and maybe when I'm feeling brave, I'll show it to you. But anyway, you know, this scene is very provocative. And of course, sometimes it's Mary Magdalene, sometimes it's a prostitute in the synoptics. So this is one that keeps coming up. There are the two Greeks. In other ones, it just says the Greeks who come looking for Jesus. And it's interesting. Mark and I were talking about this on the way here. He leaves and goes to the safe side of the river, and then he comes back across to go to Bethany to help Martha and Mary. And then John says after that, he was careful not to be seen in the open. So he was still holding back. The Greeks come to Philip and they say, we would like to speak to your master or to Jesus. And Jesus hears it and he says, my time has come.
Oh,
And that is when, at the moment when we extend beyond, and we don't know, these Greeks could have been Jewish. I mean, but extending beyond the provincial, if that's the right word, the narrow to the
and what he
world.
knows,
And
yeah.
when you want it to spread, you have to go out in the open, in the world. And
He means the time has come for him to die,
I think
or
so,
the time to come
both.
to be more public.
Yeah, I think the one leads to the other, at least
Oh, I
in
see. He
John's.
knows what's as a
How John,
result.
yeah. So, and in all these intimate relationships with Mary of Bethany, with Judas Iscariot, and then of course, at the very end, Nicodemus, this is Michelangelo's The Deposition, and they acknowledge it, they're not sure, it could be Joseph of Arimathea, but Nicodemus will come back again with Joseph, and he is involved in the arguments, and I believe it's the Sanhedrin. But that man who came at night with the questions, he was there. In John's gospel, he was there at the end for his friend. And so this is what, these are probably some of the things Lindsay will cover, and where we're heading. And the skull and crossbones is me on these pictures, but there's this beautiful, the one on the left is the view towards Jerusalem from Bethany.
Mhm.
And the one on the right is whatever they had on this template, but it reminded me of home because I'm from Colorado. But that road, the dangerous road to Jerusalem, and it's sometimes to our Jerusalem. And like Thomas, who says, let us also go so that we may die with him. Whatever that means. And he says, and when you look at chapter 21, Jesus kept saying, follow me. Follow me. So let's do it. Amen.
Whatever happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. You have
Now
any?
I have to put on my hostess
Yeah.
apron.
This is just between. Are you? Did you stop recording?
I did not.
Okay. Goodbye. Thank you for coming to our gathering, and